Dear audience, let me introduce my PhD topic, which is about the prosthodontic application of intraoral scanning systems. As a prosthodontist, my vision is high-end digital prosthodontics available for all of my patients by bringing intraoral scanners into the prosthetic everyday workflow. In my specific goals, I wanted to investigate intraoral scanners in different ways, like the accuracy and the shape selection. In my first topic, which is a network meta-analysis, I have an evaluation of the accuracy of intraoral scanners for complete arch scanning. Some of the dental restorations can only be manufactured by CAD/CAM technology, where we always need a three-dimensional file, which is usually an STL5. Intraoral scanners are one of the machines which can produce these three-dimensional files. We can find different types of IOS in the market, and their number is increasing, and they are said to be clinically acceptable in single-tooth restorations, but the problem is that we have contradictory data about their full arch accuracy. That is why our question is that what is the accuracy of the different IOS systems when we are scanning complete arch? Our known hypothesis is that the STL files generated with the iOS are not significantly different from the reference STL files. In our PICO framework, we investigated complete arches and 26 different iOS systems, and as comparators, we had reference STL files generated from laboratory or industrial scanners. In the outcome part, we measure the accuracy, which consists of precision and trueness values. In the systematic search, we made a search in 5 databases, and in the end, we got 114 eligible articles from which we can do analysis in 53 articles. You can see 2 of the forest plots from the network analysis from the 10 subgroups. Here we just see the trueness values of the mean deviation and in the root mean square values. Here we can see that most of the scanners are not significantly different from the reference STL files, but in the case of RMS values, only 3 were not significantly different from the reference. In most cases, the iOS were not significantly different from each other. In RMS values, there were some of them which were significantly different from each other. We used the same threshold like in a last project with the 120 micrometers as for clinically acceptable range, and we can see that there were scanners which were clinically acceptable, and also there were ones which were not clinically acceptable in this case. Here we can see in the table format the 4 subgroups of my complete arches with the different intraoral scanners, and the values are in mean and with the confidence intervals are shown with the precision and the trueness values, and asterisks show the statistically significant data. Also, there is another table showing the cumulative ranking of the probability, because the network analysis is very good for making a ranking order of the investigated iOS in this case. And also we can see the different arches with the data of the different iOS. In the 4 subgroups, unfortunately, there was one in the case of the partially edentulous arch with the implants where unfortunately none of the iOS were either statistically or clinically acceptable. But in the other 3 subgroups, we have found significantly non-different iOS systems and also clinically acceptable ones. The strength of this network meta-analysis is the indirect and direct evidence, where the practical applicability is higher. But unfortunately, we don't have enough data about all iOS available in the market, so we cannot compare all of them, and most articles, of course, measure just models and not real patients. And as mentioned before, this threshold value with the 120 microns is not a gold standard, it's just a suggestion. Our conclusions were that the accuracy of complete arch scanning with the iOS differs based on the different clinical scenarios, and that different iOS should be used according to the complete arch types. And of course, there were IOS which were not recommended for complete art scanning at all, just for quadrant scans. And for implication for research, we mentioned that standardized protocols are needed for further researches. This manuscript is in minor revision phase at Journal of Dentistry. My second topic is also meta-analysis. It is about the comparison between IOS scanners and spectrophotometer shade matching. In 65 cases when we have to redo our restorations is due to the bad shade selection, and that is why new digital methods were introduced in the market for shade selection. For example, spectrophotometers, which can be said to be gold standard as an objective method. And also now the intraoral scanners, some of them are available for shade selection. And that is why our question was so we wanted to investigate the accuracy of shade selection with the IOS, where our known hypothesis was that no significant difference is between the shade selection with the IOS and with the spectrophotometers. In the outcome part, accuracy was measured in percentages, matching percentages, and the repeatability. We even wanted to measure the delta E values, but unfortunately these were not equivalent in every study. If they are accurate enough, they can be a very objective method and time-effective methods for shade selection further on. In the systematic search, we searched in 5 databases, and after the search, I also made another citation chaser search, and now we got 22 eligible articles, from which 13 were used for the statistical analysis. These are all in vivo studies which are investigating Vitai classical and 3D master shade guides, and use 5 different intraoral scanners and 4 types of spectrophotometers. And we had several subgroups for the statistical analysis. Here we can see the accuracy of 3-shape trios IOS in the 3D master shade guide, where there were 3 different types of spectrophotometers. And here, unfortunately, we got just 40% matching with the spectrophotometer as gold standard, causing an unacceptable rate of accuracy with a high heterogeneity. In the second results part of also accuracy in percentages, what we had different IOS now in this group, and it is visible in the percentage because we have poorer accuracy in this case. Here, for example, Trios 4 was one of the poorest scanner in this group, also causing an unacceptable accuracy for IOS. In the repeatability part, it is also a percentage, but now we have better results with now 81%, which can be a good repeatability with one IOS, and it is a very homogeneous population in the intervention group. And it is very similar if we just measure it in another shade guide system in Vitai classical as well. We have to make some corrections in the results part, but after that we can do the manuscript writing. My last topic is an in vitro study, which is about the effect of scan image number of IOS accuracy. As I mentioned before, there are many different types of IOS systems available in the market, and accuracy can be influenced by many factors. For example, in 3-shape scanners, there is a limit in number of images, and we know that inexperienced operators need more time to make the digital impressions, and more time will need more number of images, and there is no proof that the number of scan images affect the accuracy or not. That is why this is our critical question, that does the number of images impact the accuracy of IOS? And we will investigate a PMMA model and test in 3 different images with one scanner. And as for reference, we will use a reference STL file, and for outcome we will measure the trueness and precision in micrometer. And in the hypothesis, we have that the number of scan images does not affect the trueness and the precision of the intraoral scans. Here you can see how we can measure the number of images in the software. We need a sample size calculation for this topic, and as per summary, I want to say that after these 3 topics, I was also involved in other clinical studies as co-author. In the additional activities, I had TDK students and presentations, and conference presentations, additional practices, and book chapters, and additional articles as well. And I want to thank you for your attention with my quote, which is, "Life is a board game where you have to learn the rules while you are playing the game." Thank you very much.
Congratulate Viki on your amazing performance. My question is regarding your second topic, that the intraoral scanners have some updated version regarding the softwares. And can you differentiate these softwares in the shade selections?
We haven't investigated, or the articles are not investigating the software versions for shade selection, but of course it is a limitation that software versions can affect, for example, the shade selection and also the accuracy of iOS systems, but these studies are not investigating if there is a better shade selection with the newer software version or not.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Viki. My question is that if you had your own private clinic, which iOS system would you choose and why?
Thank you for your question. It depends on what kind of private office I want, because as I mentioned before, our iOS should be used for the right purposes. For example, if I am going to be an orthodontist, I should prefer a scanner which is good for full art scanning, and it is available for example, in Vitai. If I am a prosthodontist and I want to do like veneers and just small restorations, I am going to choose a scanner which is good for chairside restorations like Palmaca system or Cerex system. And if I am a prosthodontist and I want to use scanners for full mouth rehabilitation, I would choose the ones which are good for full art scanning. For example, 3Shape Trio scanner was a good choice, and also PrimeScan had very good results, even if it is said to be a chairside system, but the full art scanning was very good in this case.
Thank you, Viki.
And my most main question, can we prove the null hypothesis? Can we prove the null hypothesis?
Which case?
In any case.
Proof it is do we accept it or do we not accept it, or what do you mean by can we prove it?
Proving. But this is the meaning of the p-value. Does this prove if it's higher than 0.05? Does this prove that the null hypothesis is true?
The p-value is usually connected to the significant difference in the statistics, and below the 0.05 we usually say that it is significantly different, and above that it is not significantly different. And we usually choose our hypothesis.
Okay, but yes. Does this prove that the null hypothesis is true? If the p-value is above this level?
In this case, we usually reject it.
What?
The null hypothesis.
If the p-value is above 5%?
If it is below 5%.
Yeah, it reject. And the opposite?
Then we accept it.
The null hypothesis?
Yes, but usually...
Do not reject it, okay, please. It doesn't prove the null hypothesis. Okay, we can never prove the null hypothesis. Okay. I'm sorry, but I should say this because it's a big misunderstanding. Okay, we cannot prove the null hypothesis, never.
Okay, thank you.
If you want to examine that if two treatments or anything else are equivalent, we should carry out equivalence studies. And it's just...
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. How did you measure repeatability?
In the second study, usually, in this case, the studies are measuring the middle right incisor of a patient, and they are measuring if the scanner can measure the same tooth shade as many times as possible. So in this case, they are, for example, doing 10 scans, and they measure if they are the same. This is the percentage what they have. So in this case, we don't have the control as the spectrophotometers, because it is just a repeatability measuring, if it can measure the same shade as before.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.